Okay, Councillor Roberts, Zavitz, and Kent, can you hear? Can you just give me a quick thumbs up? Fantastic. Okay, it is currently 9:02 a.m. and I would like to officially call this meeting to order. I'd like to confirm that all members are present and we do have quorum. In addition, I'd like to confirm we have our CAO clerk and members of senior management and team and staff all here and present. I'd also like to advise that we did not receive any comments, but just an ongoing reminder that if members of the community would like to send in comments, please send them to tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. Reminder that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website. Councillor Roberts, can you hear us? Councillor Zavitz?
Lynn, can you hear anything?
Councillor Zavitz, can you hear us?
Yes, he puts on.
I can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Roberts is having some technical challenges. I'm hoping that somebody could help assist her. He's okay now? Okay. Okay, so today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Would like to advise that there was a supplementary agenda with included on that was a letter from the Muskoka Ratepayers Association, letter read 2024 budget. At this point, I would like to ask committee if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. If we discuss the AEDs, I would have to declare a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you, sir. And just a quick reminder that motions have been populated with random movers and seconders to expedite this meeting. And with voting, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, and this is not considered a recorded vote. We do not have any delegations today. So I am actually going to move right on to item 6A. Or do I read the public comments? No, okay. So item 6A, and that is a motion to suspend the rules. So I will read this motion, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Mayor Kelly. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 2.3.2 of the Township's procedural bylaw 2023-089 as amended, the rules of procedure be hereby suspended for the duration of the presentation of the 2024 Township of Muskoka Lakes 2024 draft operating and capital budget, and that the rules of procedure be reinstated at the conclusion of said item. Any questions? Comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, now moving on to item 6B, which is the bulk of today's conversation, I believe, or the beginning of it. I would like to welcome our Director of Finance, Director Donaldson, to the stand. Similar to last month committee, we will hear from staff. He's going to walk us through this report. And then we will open it up for discussion and questions at that time. So welcome. And I'll turn the floor over to you, Director Donaldson.
Great, thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. Report circulated to members contains an overview of the budget deliberations to date and the impact of direction that was provided to staff by committee at the special meeting on November 1st. At that meeting, staff presented a budget with a township tax levy increase of 6.9%, which was within the guideline that was approved by council. Committee provided direction to staff on changes to the 2024 capital budget, which are noted in table 2 of the report. Staff noted some omissions that didn't carry forward from the departmental detail pages to the summary page on that November 1st package, and those have been corrected. And now we have a total adjusted 2024 capital budget of $9,323,200, $20,775, $120,775, $120 million. Sorry, I wish it was 1,000. $220,775,800. In addition, new initiatives were presented for committee's consideration originating from staff, council resolution, and the public. Committee passed the resolutions noted in table 3 of the report, including one from a most recent regular committee meeting related to community center fees, which increased the total tax levy from $14,646,300 to $14,850,900, representing an 8.4% township tax levy increase over the 2023 levy of $13,700,600. Staff note that the composition of the increase in the tax levy, being the total share of taxes billed to residents, comprises of a increase in the tax rate, which is applicable to all residents, and changes in assessment that are determined by MPAC. So the tax rate that's applied to all residents, that increase is 7.2%, as noted in table 4 of the report. The change in assessment portion of the tax levy will be collected to those who received reassessment notices from MPAC due to changes made in their property and are only applicable to them. Included in the tax levy, drafted tax levy increase today is $441,000, or 3.2% of that 8.4%, which relates to increases in the contributions to reserves. So of that amount. The rest of the tax levy increase, which is 5.2%, or $709,300, relates to operations, including the approvals that were received at the last meeting. As committee is aware, the township portion of the total tax bill that is received by Muskoka Lakes residents is approximately 20%. The district municipality Muskoka has tabled a draft tax budget, tax supported budget with a rate increase of 4.35%. So at this time, staff are also assuming no change in the education tax rate to the tax bill. So based on a proportional weighted average, the current impact on the total tax bill for residents of Muskoka Lakes, including all elements of the tax bill, would be 3.8%, or $22.84 per $100,000 of assessment. And that's excluding any growth in assessment value. Committee further directed staff to return with additional information related to a proposal on the support to support a request from the Community Pickleball Club and some scenarios around the additional contributions to reserves. And those reports are included in the agenda package for further discussion. Lastly, under as the method of year-end reporting for the provincial requirement is under public sector accounting standards, and it differs from the way we do our municipal budget. Ontario Regulation 284/09 requires the approval from council on reconciling adjustments for excluded expenses from the budget. And so that's included in your report as well. And just for your information, for under PSAS reporting with the adjustments for capital assets and debt principal, the current draft township budget shows a surplus of $2,743,900 under public sector accounting standards. And with that, Chair, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Okay, committee. Are there any questions on Director Donaldson's report? Questions or comments actually at this point, but Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, I'm not sure how you're going to, are we going to go through some of these items? A discussion on any of these items in his report?
If that's the will of the committee, then this is the opportunity to talk about this.
Yes.
We will once we've had a conversation, we can also table this motion as we get to the 2 other items, if there are any amendments to be made. And at the end, is that correct? You should be looking at our quick. Should I read this now then? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read this resolution, and that's going to give me the chance to open it up to questions and comment. I'm following the advice of our clerk, and she's recommending that I read this right now. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the 2024 report on excluded expenses, Ontario Regulation 284-09 regarding expenses excluded from the 2024 draft budget and forecast as included in report FIN-2023-026 be approved, and that the Township of Muskoka Lakes 2024 draft operating and capital budget and forecast as attached to report FIN-2023-022 be forwarded to council for final approval. So at this point, I will open up the floor on this particular report that's in front of us, item 6B. Are there any questions or comments from committee? Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, I'm trying to. I don't know that I have it open the same as you. So there's a couple of items.
Okay.
Like the staffing additions, and I'm not sure necessarily was there a budget item about the pickleball? Like
So the pickleball discussion will happen when we get to 6C. And we won't close off this portion of the discussion until we've had all of the discussions, because the one that's following that is the discussion on the reserve contribution. So right now, we're just asking Director Donaldson from his report, his summary from our discussion last month, if there's any questions on this particular portion of the report before that. And once we close off on that, then we will move into the discussion on pickleball and then into reserves. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa?
Well, I guess I have to go to a few different screens, I guess, because I'm just
That's
not,
fine.
so I'm probably talking about something out of order. But primarily I guess I was looking at the staffing report.
Okay.
Like the additions.
So are you referencing then table number 3?
Well, again, I'll open up another because it doesn't show that way on what I've got open. So yes,
So I'm
it
looking at
is table 3.
Table 3?
But it also goes into another section too. So a couple of questions that I have about the GIS technician.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if even Mr. Burry might be able to help me. We eliminated the position at district for the GIS for Muskoka Lakes, I thought I heard. Okay, that's why, thank you, because I thought they specifically talked about Muskoka Lakes not being involved in that program any longer. Where's David?
No, quite
And
the
then we
opposite.
have a
We're
new
funding
person.
it. Quite the opposite. Councillor Nishikawa, the Township of Muskoka Lakes has committed to funding that particular position because it's in our best interests.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sorry, if I just want to be sure that we are also directing these, if there's questions for staff, because I want to make sure if there's a question on the GIS specialist role. It sounds like it is being funded through the district. Okay.
yeah,
CAO
and then,
Hammond.
well, yes, it's kind of who's going to be doing what and to what level.
Okay.
And if there's duplication.
Okay, thank you. CAO Hammond.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I'm going to ask Mr. Pink to follow up if I've missed anything, but essentially just for the balance of council for your information. So the district has put a placeholder in their budget for an additional GIS specialist. Their intent really was to go forward with that position jointly across all municipalities. And as you recall, our conversations, excuse me, our conversations so far have been that we collectively found value in our pilot project. And so in moving forward, we've put a proposal forward that Muskoka Lakes would have exclusive use of that position for the initial 2 years to allow us to continue with the work we've done for mapping for the community, as well as allowing us to bridge into our asset management needs and GIS needs from an asset management perspective. So that's sort of the nature of how that position is housed in the district. It's an in and an out. We would be funding it again for the first 2 years. With respect to the details of the productivity or the outputs from that position, I defer to Mr. Pink for additional detail. Thank you.
Okay, Director Pink, did you want to add anything?
Good morning, committee. Certainly, I'm happy to go into any details if you have questions, just at a high level from a development services end. I think we're looking at perhaps mapping our site plan applications and agreements. But I'd look to Mr. Becking and be able to work after that.
Okay, thank you. Director Becking, did you want to add?
Well, I can say, Madam Chair, that the intention would be to have this position further develop our asset management databases and the mapping for it. That will be crucial to your ability into the future to manage our assets effectively and to maintain our information in a current state so that you're using the best available information in order to make decisions.
Okay, thank you. Fire Chief Marat.
And I echo what the Director of Operations has just indicated in terms of the fleet and the fleet management in our 10-year plan, as well as I just saw a presentation where we could use GIS to manage our community risk assessment in a more wholesome way using dashboards. And I think there's a lot of work that our group is going to have with any new position that this council approves.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, do you have a supplementary?
Well, again, I guess I'm just really more concerned about. I appreciate the position in our township. I'm just more concerned about our actions at district. And I don't have a clear picture, and I don't think I'll get it at this time, but it's mine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see two hands up on screen. I'll go Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Kent.
Okay, thank you very much. Through you, I guess a general statement to the rest of the group. As we're looking at staffing, I'm certainly interested in the HR generalist position being taken off of the budget. That would be my position. I think we're going to, through this day, we are going to be contemplating quite a number of other items that are plus, and we're getting up there. So to my sense, I would prefer to drop that. And I also would prefer to drop the GIS technician, although with the discussion that we've had, I'm reluctant to indicate that because I don't know how far, if someone could give us a really clear picture of exactly how far into this thing we are. It seems to me if we were to pull that position, do we do harm to ourselves by not following up with good money's already spent? So I guess I would put that as a question to staff if there's a way to answer that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think Director Pink, perhaps you could just give us a quick summary of the work done to date, please.
Certainly, through you. The brunt of the work so far has been mapping building permit activity, so historical building permit activity as well as current, their status, the class, etc., as well as a number of planning applications. We have all of our previous minor variance applications online, as well as zoning amendments and official plan amendments. So the last remaining is we would explore predominantly whether site plan agreements can be included on that mapping, as well as our new septic reinspection program. We will be taking the coordinates when the third-party contractor will be visiting those sites, collecting that data. So we'd explore those two. I think, to briefly answer the question, I don't think there's any certainly requirement to map those, but as the CEO previously mentioned, I think it's been very well received in the community. And we can certainly continue to expand on that. But as I said previously, I think the majority of mapping really of the 2 years that's been envisioned is through operational services and emergency services. I'm hoping the development services portion is a relatively small component of that, really site plans, as well as ongoing planning activity. So sort of the active applications, we got very close to completing that. It would be helpful to have some ongoing support with it to make sure it's functioning as intended.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Nishikawa, sorry. Thank you very much, Director Pink. Okay, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Chair Mazan. I have two questions. First, on the GIS. My understanding at the last meeting, and I actually understand the value of this project, but I thought what the discussion was that the district would take this person for 2 years and then we would take this person for 2 years, but they would be in combination. I'm confused by the discussion about the district commitment. My recommendation at the time was let district have them first for 2 years and then we'll take them after the fact. Let's see the commitment at the top. And right now we don't need to be spending the money, so let's put it off for 2 years. So I understand the value of moving that forward, but I'd hate to see the district component of that falling off the table. And it sounded like that was what was happening. That's question number one. Why don't we answer that, Chair, and then maybe I'll come back to my second question.
That sounds fine. CAO Hammond.
So the rationale for housing the person at the district is that they have the expertise in-house there with respect to GIS. So it's just, equated to a center of excellence, if you will. And so they had intended on moving forward with the position. I don't know what their plans are if our funding commitment is not approved. I can't speak to that. But again, the intent was that we felt there was enough work now, as well as into the future, for 2 years that we could get a foothold. Potentially, if we do feel that we want to go forward on a permanent basis, we would revisit that decision in the second year and try and ascertain some expertise and bring them in-house here. Could be that person that's at the district, depending on their approach with respect to if it's a contract for them or if it's a permanent position, that person may stay there. But certainly the intent would be eventually, if we do see the value that we've previously seen, if we continue to see that, then yes, staff would likely be in a position to say we should bring somebody in-house.
So just for clarity, has the district, and I'm confused about what Councillor Nishikawa said, has the district or Mr. Burry, have they backed away from funding at this point? It sounds like they have.
No, CAO Hammond.
So my understanding is I don't know if that position has been cut from the budget account. The district councillors would be in a better position than I would to speak to that. But my understanding is no, it's still there.
Okay.
So I think that okay, so Councillor Burry, and then I'm going to try to summarize what I'm understanding.
So my understanding is that the district has the center of excellence, as CEO Hammond has pointed out, that the township is funding this particular headcount with GIS expertise to do township work, but will be housed in the district. It's a 2-year commitment to get more of our stuff done, to put a higher priority on our work, but we don't have a space to house the person, is my understanding. And for sure, having them next to the other people with GIS expertise will make a much smoother job. But they will report through GIS from an HR standpoint, but they're reporting to our directors for a work standpoint, if I understand that correctly. And the district is moving ahead with that and would like to do that.
My interpretation of all this is it's an innovative approach to solving not having to have space here, ensuring that we have subject matter experts together. And with that comes some shared costs, quite frankly. It's a 2-year investment, so that's also not a long-term commitment. And it's a way for us to be somewhat in control of the township getting some dedicated focus on initiatives that are important to us. So I think I'm summarizing that correctly. Just looking for nods. Okay. Okay, Councillor Kent, I see your hand is still up. Did you have another question?
I had a two-part
Yes.
question. Yeah, the second question was on the HR generalist.
Okay.
As I said at the last meeting, I am not in favor of this position. I think there's a time and a place for everything. We have 80 employees plus part-time fire. We have not properly evaluated outsourcing. And one of the reasons I understand we haven't done that is because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've got some clarity from Councillor Bosenworth on this, but there's a lot of time spent on timesheets and so that they can do allocations for accounting. And I may be misstating it, but I believe that that's something that we should seriously consider if we're doing that, because if people are spending a ton of time doing timesheets, which is why we need more HR staff to do proper allocations for P&Ls that, in my opinion, don't provide a lot of real decision-making value, if any, we should reevaluate that. I think there's a time and a place, and consistent with the ratepayers, I think this position should be delayed. I think it's a lot of money. I don't think we need more staff at this point in time. If we have a interim issue where somebody has a pregnancy leave or a maternity leave, we'll have to deal with that with a temporary person. But I think we should delay this staff. That's my personal view. And we should look at outsourcing and reevaluate this issue of timesheets very carefully, because it seems to me like it's not time well spent.
Okay, I think in there, I heard one comment / question that it may be good to hear from staff on, and that is the timekeeping. I think it's best to hear directly from the source if that is something that is time consuming. So where's Ms. Lehman?
Hi, good morning, committee. I think we did get into a bit of a conversation around payroll the last time, because the new person would be proposed, they would back up payroll, but and I know there was a suggestion about outsourcing payroll, but that wasn't something that was contemplated in this proposal. So yes, there's time spent on timekeeping. That's not a problem per se for us. I was making the point that in order to outsource, there would still be a great deal of internal work that needs to be done. So we would still need a person, but perhaps you wouldn't need as an experienced of a person, which we do have now. So I don't know that we're looking at I can look at outsourcing payroll, but it's a bit of a different question. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I saw Mayor Kelly and then Councillor Roberts. Oh, and then Councillor Zavitz. I see your hand up again. And then Councillor Bosenworth. Oh, you were before, sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna redo the order here. Mayor Kelly, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Bosenworth, and then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. And through you, just real quickly, I think both of these positions, GIS and also HR support, are hurting for lack of a really clear understanding of what value that position will create. Will it result in headcount reduction? Will it result in other efficiencies? Will it result in better information that we can use to control risk or recruit or retain? To simply focus on headcount, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of a bogus piece of data. What you really need to look at, I think, is the service level that those heads deliver and whether there's real value in keeping them or, keeping them in the proposed budget or not. So again, the GIS thing, I know just enough to be dangerous. I've seen a couple of really slick presentations. They look extraordinary, but nobody's actually stood up and said, this will allow us to more efficiently do A, B, and C, or to avoid hiring more people, or to be faster turnaround for our constituents, or whatever the value creation is. I think the same argument goes for the HR, what's it called? HR generalist. I have my own opinion on what that role might do and why it's necessary. Things like retention in the environment that we're in and recruitment in the environment we're in are critical. But I'd like to hear the value that proposed expenditure will harvest to make us bigger, better, faster, more focused, more responsive. I don't know what the answers are, but there's got to be some value driven other than just simply measuring headcount.
Okay, so I think what I might do is, Ms. Lehman, you just put your hand up. So I'm going to suggest that maybe you take a first crack at the value of your role. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So last time, just to take us back. So in the case, I outlined kind of the development of the function at the municipality. So how we got here with the role and how the roles developed and the varied work and emphasize the value of the department. And then in the last meeting, we talked about how I would be able to work with you and other stakeholders to produce a people plan to prepare the organization for the future. We talked about the measurables of the new position being payroll, health and safety, and recruitment, a lot of that transactional work. I let you know there's an opportunity for an increased WSIB rebate in the form of increased participation with the excellence program. We talked about payroll being a specialized role and that we're covering the work successfully in-house. And that we have 100 municipal employees and 150 volunteer firefighters. And every year the fire department has become increasingly more complex. So it's not a simple volunteer structure. It's more like an employee structure. So they require more HR support. So today I wanted to reinforce, so thank you, Mayor Kelly, for bringing up the question that complex HR topics require a high degree of ongoing support to execute well. And so we're missing doing projects such as updated health and safety programs, updated policies, more HR policies that are modern and the things that our employees need and new young employees want. Things like employee engagement surveys and analysis of that. So once you survey the employees, you need to listen and find out what they need and respond to that. You can't just survey and leave it. And as I mentioned, a people plan. So that would outline the gaps. It would create a structure of what we would work on first and how we would prepare ourselves. So.
Okay, thank you. CAO Hammond?
Just like to add to Ms. Lehman's comments, some observations. So in the budget guidelines, we talked about two issues that we were facing: infrastructure and talent, and the budget being a tool to address those issues. Ms. Lehman's talked a little bit about the current issues that she's facing. 200 plus employees for one person, emerging issues that we've never dealt with before. One person. It's also about the future. So the workplace is changing. The workforce is changing. Conditions, people's expectations, the whole landscape is changing. So this position, in my mind, the reason I stood with her, behind her in bringing this forward, is that it's about the future. It's about ensuring that we have the ability to attract, retain, and train, mentor good talent that's going to serve this community into the future. That's really important. So I view this as an investment, and I would agree with Mayor Kelly. I don't think using headcount as a discount for other things that you want to do is appropriate. I'm not sure that's a wise decision or a wise investment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was Mayor Kelly. I just want to make sure. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you. Most of my questions were just answered by Ms. Lehman and the CAO. I've been given a lot of thought to this and discussion with other people. And so the number is 250, even though part of it is full-time and part of it is volunteer. But we all realize if we lost 10% of our volunteer, well, I've just pulled that number of the year. But if we lost a portion of our volunteer, we'd be in big trouble trying to find replacements. So whatever we can do to keep those people employed and their questions answered and right, I think we need to do it. And I got thinking about this. I actually had a discussion with one of our peers on this, is that of all the increases we've made in the last few years, they've all been, I think they've all, if I could correct you if I'm wrong, all been involved because we, council, wanted something to be done. The septic reinspection program, the short-term rentals, those growth in headcount, we'll say, was all directed because of council wishes. And I think this is probably one of the first ones that I can recall in the few years I've been here that's come from staff to saying, in order for us to do a really good job and do the best job for our employees, the best job for the corporation, we believe we need this position. And so I, for one, are very in support of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Chair. I want to take us back to the GIS technician. Mayor Kelly very nicely asked the question in a much broader sense than I will, but My question really is to staff. You were piquing my interest about, Director Pink talked about the utility from a constituent's viewpoint. I am actually more interested in the utility to your department, and then I heard the fire department has interest, so now I'm even more interested. If I could get a little more meat behind, you know, how does this help our staff do their job better? I mean, it's nice that the public gets to see it, but you know, on the pressures of financial pressures we have on our capital plan, the public might say, well, you know, it's nice to have, but it's not, you know, it can wait a couple of years. But if it's going to have a dramatic impact or significant impact about our operations, and as Mayor Kelly says, you know, make us more efficient or actually save us some time and we can get more done in less time, that really interests me. And if you could just get a comment on the departments that are going to be affected and how they're going to benefit from it.
So given it's across 3 departments, I think I'm gonna ask CAO Hammond at least to do the initial response, if that's okay. Because it's 3 departments really, yes.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and I'll start and I'm gonna defer to each of the department heads to follow up and either confirm or refute what I'm saying, but this is my understanding. So firstly, I think it's an efficiency and effectiveness matter. So right now, I suspect that you've got to go to a number of different databases to find information on site plans, and it's a bit of a laborious approach depending on age of the site plan to find it for staff. And I think this will improve our ability to retrieve information more quickly. It's more readily available. As it relates to the other functions, my sense is in some cases, the information that we have is probably on Excel sheets. We're developing that information, and it's also again about quicker access to the information and having it readily available and being able to leverage it for better analysis than we're currently capable of doing. So I'll stop there and turn it over to the department heads for additional comments.
I think I'll start with Director Pink, then Director Becking.
Thank you. I think all I could add to the CEO's comments is obviously there'd be some efficiencies as well. When the community has the information at their fingertips, they don't have to come to staff to retrieve it. So that certainly saves some staff time in addition to our efficiencies in retrieving it ourselves. Wouldn't categorize it as drastic, to be honest, with my areas, but certainly beneficial.
Okay, thank you. Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll change the focus a little bit and put it on committee and council. You've invested a lot of money to put together an asset management plan. That's not going away. That is now a requirement that will be perpetual. That information, when properly analyzed, kept current, et cetera, will give you the information that you need in order to be able to address the capital issue that we all know is coming down the pipe at you. If you don't keep those databases current, if you don't provide the necessary, then basically you've given up the value of what you've already spent, and it will not allow you to make informed decisions on a go-forward basis. You are the beneficiaries of this.
Okay, thank you. Can I?
Supplement for the director.
Sure.
So now you've really piqued my interest. And this is titled as a GIS technician, which I think G stands for. Thank you. What it really sounds like is it's a database with all the information about things like our roads or our fire vehicles. And we just happen to be putting it onto a mapping system so the public can see it as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, thank you. Director Becking.
Madam Chair, no, that's not at all what we're talking about. All of the assets that the corporation owns exist in space. And there are relationships between all of these assets. Think of a road. road's got ditches, or it's got sewers, or it's got water mains, or it's got whatever. It's attached to a bridge. All of this stuff interrelates. And in order for you to make the best decisions about what needs to get done and what the priorities are and how things get treated, all of this information has to be brought together in one consistent format. GIS is a very powerful analytical tool that, if used appropriately, can help you make better decisions and help staff provide you information in a more efficient manner. So instead of, as the CLO has correctly alluded to, instead of me sitting down with 57 different spreadsheets and trying to consolidate all of this information, we have one central system that is fundamental and core to the operation of the organization, which can be used to analyze, consolidate this information in one location, analyze data, and provide you with the information that will then be able to allow you to make informed decisions about the right course of action moving forward. And ultimately, as we all are aware, those decisions finally, in the end, boil down to dollars and cents. So in my mind, that's where the connection is.
Okay, thank you. Chief Morrell, did you want to add?
Yeah, through you. I just saw a presentation at the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs annual general meeting from Georgina Fire, how they're using GIS to better track their public education activities. And if you can imagine, they were able to discover some new challenges through tracking, just by going door to door and tracking survey results and things like that. They were able to change public opinion in an area so that people had more of an awareness around how much time they had to escape. So it's a huge achievement, and that would not have been able to be accomplished had they not tracked it and managed it through the GIS program. Second to that, response. So response for us, if you could imagine, if we could shave a couple minutes off of a fire response time to find water. So just tracking all the sites where we can get to water at people's places and making sure that those sites are always available to us, that could have a huge advantage, as well as when we're searching for people on trails for search and rescue, we can use the what three words. Again, I saw all of this through the Georgina Fire use of GIS, and there's a lot more to come, and there's a lot more usefulness that we see with GIS moving forward. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I see Councillor Zavitz has had his hand up, and then I'm coming to you, Councillor Burry. Okay, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. I guess to stay on this GIS topic for a moment, as I understand it, we are in year 2 of at least a minimum 2-year commitment. Is that correct? This is not brand new. We're going to continue we're contemplating continuing to fuel the position. Am I correct? Given some of David's comments about we've accomplished this, we've accomplished that, we're just, other things that we can do with it, as we've heard from our directors and our top management. So is this year 2? And if it is year 2, what did we spend in year 1?
Director Pink, I think we're going into year 3, are we not? But if you could.
Well, yeah.
Or Director Donaldson, whoever.
Thank you, Chair. So so in 2020, hope I get my years right here. I think it was in 2021 or 2022. Council approved $80,000 in the budget, which was used to hire a staff person. Staff person joined halfway through the year. So the funds that were not spent in the approval year were rolled over into the second year. And then that person left the employ of the district. So that 1-year contract was approved by council and then ended. So now we're kind of in a place where there isn't anybody there, to the best of my knowledge, to fill this role. So this would kind of be bringing back that function that we had previously.
Okay. Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you, a comment. I'm a bit of a tech geek, and I've kept the GeoHub tab open in my browser permanently for about the last year and a half. I'm going to say it has probably saved me 100 phone calls to the CAO or the Director of Planning, because I can go online and look at the information and tell the constituents that are asking the questions what's going on, or even some of my fellow councillors at times. I don't know why we're bickering over automating and getting better data, better information for our township. Better data makes for better decisions. And this is just a really, really powerful tool. I mean, I love it.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any other hand. Oh, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, I just want to make a quick observation, a comment. The service level enhancements in this organization really come from one of three places. They come from a counselor or a group of counselors who have an initiative that they want to see put into action. Often it serves a local group of their constituents, but they have a voice, and they generally have some momentum behind them in terms of constituents who are helping to propel. We get lots of input, usually by way of emails, some of them happy and friendly, and some of them not so much, about things that we need to do differently and better and faster. The third sort of origin for any kind of service level is from our staff. And quite frankly, that's the most challenging. It comes as a logical extension of the work that we've hired them, or that the CAO has got them in the township employ to do. They see opportunities to improve or enhance or make efficient processes and things that have been going on for years. It's prudent, solid management. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a big drum. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a big groundswell of momentum from people saying, you have to do this, you have to do this. I raised my earlier question because I did want to hear from the directors, and also from on the GIS side, and from Ms. Lehman on the HR side. What are you thinking? What is the process improvement that you're proposing is going to cost $250,000 all in, going to result in? Is it efficiencies? Is it better service? Is it quicker turnaround? Is it whatever it is? I've heard the answers. I'm satisfied with the answers. And frankly, I don't see any signs that we're empire building. I don't see any signs that we're off on some folly or mission here. I think we have good, solid recommendation and suggestion from our staff to make process improvements that come with a cost, but that the cost will ultimately be offset by efficiencies, better tools, better management, better retention. One of the things that we have to acknowledge, that I certainly have to acknowledge, it's been 8 or 9 years since I was responsible for growing and maintaining a workforce. I've been out of the workforce that long, leading a business. I think that the temperature has changed dramatically, particularly up here. Retention is everything. Recruitment is a challenge. I don't know that we do enough recruitment to have stats, but I guarantee you, if we could turn around and recruit and bring someone on board in 60 days, 5 years ago, it's 6 months now. And that's a skill set that we need to acknowledge if we're going to attract and retain good people. So I thank you for the feedback. I mean, it literally was designed to see the value, and certainly you've confirmed in my mind the fact that in both of these positions there is value.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, on the entire report. Okay, Councillor Burry.
Oh, thank you. Through you, a question to Director Becking. Super pleased to see that the Windermere Village Town Hall is moving to propane. My question is that about air source heat pumps. Does it make sense to add more additional capital cost upfront to reduce the operating costs for the next 25 years. And that being, I mean, a propane backup furnace is necessary for about 20 days a year now. And that's if people are actually inhabiting the space, because I'm hoping we turn our temperatures down when people aren't in them. But the fact is that, you know, the vast majority of the heating and cooling of that building could be done with an air source heat pump. Their operating efficiencies are down to minus 22, 23, 24. And we're not getting many days colder than that. And I'd argue that many of those days people probably aren't using the community center. So I'm wondering if it's worth, you know, the additional $8,000 or $9,000 to add the heat pump to have a dual source. If the building's a keeper, I mean, if it's not, you can move the air pump, the heat pumps. But I'm just wondering if we've done enough analysis to recognize whether adding that would reduce our operating costs over the next 20 or 25 years.
Madam Chair, I'm sure the councillor will smile when I say that there's no question, hands down, the economics are there in terms of improved efficiency, lower operating cost. Eventually, over time, the additional investment is recouped and then some. So no arguments there. I think, however, he's also touched upon the critical issue here. Is it a keeper? And that's a decision that you're going to have to face in 2024 as it relates not only to that particular facility, but other facilities and what will be the level of service that has to be provided to the community. I would caution you against making large investments in infrastructure that frankly may not justify that expenditure. So as a consequence, I would suggest we can hold off on the expenditure in the short term until you've done your level of service, and then revisit the decision at that point.
Okay. You're okay. Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. It's more of a statement or comment, I guess. I don't have to wait. I believe that this building will be standing. I believe it will be a building in the community in the future. But more importantly, the added, even if the building somehow gets sold off, I think we're still better off going without a fossil fuel heating system. And I think I'm happy to put it into the budget now to improve that building at this point with a better heating system. I don't think it's going to disappear. I've been part of the fight for community centers for years and years and years. And if you want to see the public stand up, that especially in Windermere, I'm just saying. So I'm happy if we were to increase our budget to get that other system in place rather than using a propane system.
Okay. Councillor Burry, did you want to? It seemed like you were satisfied with staff's approach.
No, you can always add it later. You're going to need some form of propane or liquid natural gas as a backup until we no longer have days colder than minus 20, which may be in our lifetime, may not. But it is the kind of thing that can be added later. As Director Becking pointed out, it's also the kind of thing that can be moved. So if we decided to put it in now, it could be moved. And there's not a lot of additional cost to that, but I'm happy to defer.
Okay. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I believe the propane furnace in. I had recommended it before to save money. That is in the village park. So you're not gonna sell it off or sell the park. I had emails just last week where citizens want to put more playground equipment in there. They're talking about fundraising for it and everything else like that. So it is viable. There's not much in Windermere, and that we just spent money on Jasmine Park, which I was fully supportive of. And I would support putting playground equipment in the Windermere Park. And that's so that at this point, I would say just go with the propane, and we can always look at other venues after, but I would leave it in definitely. In fact, I'd leave the original $8,000 in just to make sure that we don't have to come back if it's a few $100s more. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing at this point, generally that we're satisfied with the shift to propane and possibly the future contemplation of the Air Force. I was gonna say Air Force. I don't think that's what it's called though.
I'm hoping, and I know that Director Becking, we're on the same page, that as we determine which of our assets are going to be long-term assets for the township,
Okay.
that we're going to make each one of them the best that they can possibly be.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments as to the entire report? I know we've had lengthy discussion on the roles, so I'm going to circle back to those, but okay, I'm not seeing any. So committee, we have had a good healthy discussion, I would say, on the two roles in particular, the HR generalist and the GIS technician. And I just wanted to gauge from committee now if there's interest in removing one or both of those roles from this year's budget. So I think perhaps I will go one role at a time and I want to just do a straw poll. If there's interest in removing these from the budget at this time, in which case then I'd have to have a resolution written to amend the budget. So just a quick straw poll. The HR generalist role, if there is interest in removing this, please raise your hand. Okay. I don't think that is, I think that will stay in based upon the vote, correct? There's 4, so that means 6 is saying leave it in. Okay. The GIS technician, the same question. If you would like to have this removed from this year's budget, please raise your hand. Okay, I see 1 hand raised, so that means committee is supporting having GIS stay in the budget as well. Okay, so I believe that this then closes off 6A on our budget, correct? Or 6B? Okay, the clerk is advising me, I just need to get consensus from committee to table this motion as we discuss the next 2 items, which are pickleball and the reserves. So I just need a show of hands for those in support of just tabling this motion so we can discuss the next 2 items. Show of hands. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Zavitz, you have your little hand up too. Okay.
I have many hands. Thank you. So before we move on to more specific criteria or information here, I'm just wondering again, just to throw a screw in the works here, but so when we're contemplating short-term rental, there's no question in my mind that in 2024, should that come to pass, and I know that's a crystal ball piece, but do we need to have money in a budget to set that up? If it's going to happen, there will be substantial costs associated with that. And if we don't think there will be, we've got our heads in the sand. So I'm asking here, I guess through to Mark, where would those developmental, let's call it, monies come from to implement that program if it happens in, I don't know, September or October?
Okay, thank you very much. Yep. Okay, thanks for the question. I'm going to ask Director Donaldson to start.
Thank you, Chair. So Director Pink and I had this conversation when we were preparing the draft budget that was presented.
we didn't presuppose any outcomes with respect to the discussions on short-term rentals or the bylaw. However, if there was seed money required, it would be drawn from a reserve in 2024, and then it would be included in the budget for 2025 and replaced at that time.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for the question. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. And through you, just before we move off this report, I would love to hear from Director Donaldson. The story of the debt repayment, I think it's shown as 110,500. Every year, I think I ask and get reminded what it's about, what its term and terms are. And I'm going to ask one more time, please.
Okay, thank you. Director Donaldson?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the municipality took out a 20-year debenture about 15 years ago. One was part of it was for the Windermere Fire Hall. I believe the other part of it was for the Port Carling Fire Hall, and it matures in 2027.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think at this point we will move on. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, maybe Director Donaldson could say that 20-year debenture, how much was it? How much interest are we actually paying because we debenture rather than and not setting money aside in the reserves like we should be doing?
Okay, thank you.
If I could just, I think I know, but if I could just have a moment, I'm just going to check my records to. I think it was around 1.7 million, but I'm going to check here just for a moment. Through your chair, I was close. It was 1.65 million. It was issued under District Bylaw 2007-81 at an interest rate of 5.233% annually.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. And through you, one final thought. So other than that one amount owing that comes off annually, and is completed in 2027. This corporation doesn't carry any other debt on its books, correct, Mark?
Okay, Director Donaldson?
Through your chair, that's correct. There's no debt other than the debenture from the district.
In any way, shape, or form. So we are a very fortunate municipality. We'll have to keep this in mind over the next few hours. Thank you.
Okay. I like how you frame that. And I think just because we talked about debt, I think once again to hear from Director Donaldson as to your thoughts and recommendation as to when debt is a good or is an option to consider for financing.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, you're asking what's a good use of using debt financing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think my suggestion or recommendation to committee would be that if we have assets already in the pool, we should not rely on debt financing to maintain current assets we already have. In accounting, we have amortization expense, which is not a great exact replication for replacement costs, but it is a bit of a placeholder in proxy, and it is a non-cash expense that in the normal course of business, you would use that non-cash expense to then maintain and work on rehabilitation of your current assets. So debt would not typically be something that would be considered a good use for rehabilitation or replacement of existing assets unless you're doing significant enhancements to extend useful life. Otherwise, you would tend to look at new assets that have extreme capital costs, and we've got a couple of examples in the district where they've used debt financing when they're doing a full new build, and it's got a long useful life, and you can extend that and amortize that over the useful life going forward. I think the building of a new fire hall like we did in 2007, probably what I would say that's an appropriate use of debt financing. That type of would be a good example.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. So, Mr. Donaldson, if we borrowed 1.65 million, I believe we paid about $1 million in interest in that. Is it not? It would end up 134,000 times 20 years is basically 2,668,000.
Okay, Director Donaldson.
There would have been interest on that debt for sure, and interest is a component of debt financing that needs to be considered. I think it's a weighing of the preponderance of when do you collect, how do you collect, and who the payer is of the assets that you're building. So
okay, thank you. So committee, I am actually going to suggest it's just after 10 and we have 2 more topics on our agenda. Why don't we take a 15-minute break? We'll regroup here at actually 20 after 10, and that will give us a chance to talk about items C and D. Okay, so we'll be back here at 10:20. Fine. Okay. Well, I suspect he'll come back. Right, it's 10:20, so. Okay, we have everybody back in the room. At this point, I am going to ask Director Becking to walk us through item 6C. Committee, Director Becking is going to walk us through item 6C.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You'll recall at the last budget session, staff were asked to go back and engage in a discussion with the pickleball organization with respect to establishing their priorities and what the greatest needs are for that organization. Staff have done as has been requested, and we engaged in a conversation with the group. They recognized that their initial request was a exploratory request, and hope that council would fund all of it. But if that's not the case, then they've identified the need for indoor play space as being their top priority. They're requesting that the township provide the 2 arenas 6 days a week, 6 hours per day. So every day but Sunday, throughout the summer months, starting in early May. And in the case of Port Carling, that will run until approximately the middle of August. In the case of Bala, the time will again start about the middle of May and go until about the middle of October. We don't put the ice in Bala until after Cranberry Festival, which of course is in the middle of October. From a staff perspective, what that means is that we need to have somebody there while that request amounts to 72 hours a week. So 6 times 6 times 2. We don't have the staffing currently to manage that situation. We have 2 full-time attendants at the arenas plus a part-time seasonal employee. To compare this to what was done last year, the group asked for 5 hours per day times 5 days a week spread between the 2 arenas. So 5 times 5 is 25. We had to increase our seasonal hours to full-time hours in order to cover off the 25 hours last year. The delta in the request is 47 hours. So we need another full-time position to cover off the request. The financial implications of that request are as indicated in the report, the net impact being approximately $20,000. The group is not interested in entering into any kind of cost sharing type arrangement. They feel that by virtue of them paying their use fees, which I believe are about $3 per person per session, that's sufficient to cover their contribution to the effort. With that, Madam Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, just a really quick housekeeping matter. The report refers a couple of times to something called the Muskoka Lakes Pickleball. Is that an organization? Is that a group? Are they actually a formal structure to it, or is it?
Madam Chair, yes, the mayor is correct. They do have a formalized organization that provides the programming and organizing of the pickleball events or play times.
Thank you. Councillor Bosemworth, and then Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz.
Dr. Becking, I know our community centers are used regularly without staffing. How is it? What's different about the arenas that require staffing, and could we not have an agreement with this group that have them sort of self-manage while they're there?
Okay, thank you. Director Becking?
Good question, Madam Chair. And the issue is simply the security matters relative to the refrigeration plants and whatnot. We have to be there on an ongoing basis in order to properly monitor and maintain those systems. And we cannot expose the public to them.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Refrigeration system, which refrigeration systems? Because there's no ice in there, so I presume it's not the refrigeration system or the ice, so it's the air conditioning system.
No, Madam Chair, it's the ice refrigeration system. We have to maintain it 12 months of the year.
Thank you. Supplemental?
I don't get the link with somebody's using it to play pickleball, why you need someone there to maintain the chilling system for the ice.
We have to protect the security of the system. We also have to monitor what's going on in the building during the times that they are in the building. We take head counts, and that's how we manage the financial arrangements. There are more duties than just looking after the refrigeration plants, but that is first and foremost the security of those systems are critical. And they, if not treated appropriately, they can become very dangerous in a hell of a hurry.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz, and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question to the mayor's question, or the response for the being an organization. The organizations that I belong to, which are road associations and lake association, have a set of bylaws. They're incorporated. They have elected memberships. They follow procedures. Is this the same? Is this the same that the pickleball has, or is it just a collection of people that are calling themselves an association?
Okay, thank you. Director Becking?
Madam Chair, I'm not aware of the exact details of their incorporation or organizational structure, but there is a group of individuals who run, manage, organize pickleball within the township.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts, you still have your hand up. Did you want to ask another question? No? Okay. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. Through you to the Director of Public Works. Yeah, I guess to the earlier thoughts on the management of the building while people are in it, where we have other, obviously the community centers, we don't staff these arenas at night, so the refrigeration is left to its own devices and the hours that a human employed by the township isn't there. So, and again, I don't want to be argumentative, but wow, it seems like the solution to this would be to, I hate to say hand over the keys, but in that trusting piece of insurance that we as a corporation have on all of our facilities. Why would we not figure out a way to, I don't know, have someone staff member drop in on occasion and entrust the group to the building? Otherwise, why do we let 182 people in a community center for a whole night with no supervision whatsoever? So, I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I think this is the place to have that discussion, because this ask here is almost completely for another staff member. And so I think it deserves a look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I will ask CAO Hammond to speak first.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to start off a response, and then I'm sure Mr. Becking will pick up and put in more details. So when he spoke about building systems, one of the refrigerant plant uses ammonia. And I've actually been in an arena when there's been an ammonia leak, and the staff in the arena took all the precautions and got everybody outside. So there were hockey players outside in their skates because they had to evacuate that quickly. And so there's an inherent risk to having people in a facility like that that is not akin to community centers where we don't have such refrigeration systems. So I defer to Mr. Becking to confirm.
Madam Chair, the CAO is correct. Ammonia can be deadly. There have been deaths of trained people within the last 5 years. There was a case out in BC, and the first person went in, died. The second person went in to get the first person, died, and so it went. If there is an ammonia leak, that building has to be evacuated immediately, or people will be severely harmed or worse. It's not a risk that that, in staff's opinion, is appropriate for the township to take, and hence the reason why we have trained staff on site while the building is being used. Unlike the arenas, the community centers don't have these kinds of risks. We're not exposing people to those kinds of risks, and therefore we can loosen our requirements accordingly.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, Councillor Bosworth. Councillor Kent, is your hand up?
Thank you. I guess two points. If the implementation of the pickleball request requires that we add a new person, I would suggest that the $3 per person per session is not high enough, meaning it should be self-funding. Maybe the number is $6 per person per session. Why should we have to pay for we're providing the asset and they're paying for use of the asset? It should be close to self-funding. I don't know how many sessions are being assumed in there and what kind of rate increase we would have to put in place. First of all, I see a risk, by the way, in assumptions about how many sessions there are. That makes me very concerned, because I'd hope the pickup's going to be as high as we've assumed. It could be a much bigger, it could be a dramatic shortfall if they don't achieve those numbers. But number two, if they've assumed a certain number of sessions, how much would we have to raise the rate by to get to a break-even level, or a lot lesser contribution from the township?
Okay, thank you.
And that's really a question for Donaldson, Director Donaldson, I believe.
Director Becking or
Director Becking. I don't know who did the numbers.
Madam Chair, simply put, I don't have those numbers. The premise of what's before you is based on maintaining the current fee structure, which is $3 per person per session. I can tell you that the pickleball organization already objects to that. They feel that that is unreasonably high, and I would suggest to you that they would not be in favor of any further increases to the fees.
Can I just add?
Self-sustaining.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent.
Yeah, just to put this in perspective, if you rent a court anywhere, Muskoka, Toronto, Collingwood, you rent tennis courts, you rent hard courts for badminton, you pay a fee. The fee is not $3. The fee is more like $10 per hour or whatever the number is. So I think they're being unreasonable. They're asking the township to use all this space basically at a very minor cost, and that we need to be supplementing that. If you joined a pickleball, if you signed up for 10 pickleball classes, you'd be paying a cost per class. I don't think $3 per session is a reasonable number. I think it's way too low, and I don't think the township should be out of pocket by much.
Okay,
I'd like to find those numbers to find out what the break even is. If it's $5, I think that might be the route to go.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts. And then, sorry, Councillor Bosworth after. Sorry, Councillor Roberts, I'll go to you, and then Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a thought. We just completed about a year ago, so the Recreation Master Plan, which it does have activities in the list to investigate pickleball, tennis, etc., etc. And we've given Mr. Moore marching orders on the priorities. So I think we got to walk that plan. And at this time, we shouldn't jump into pickleball at the expense of something else. So that are my thoughts. Just let's work the recreation master plan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosenworth and then Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to jump back for one more question on the staffing at the arena. Does that mean that all events that happen at the arena have staffing present?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McIntyre?
The only question I would have for you is, would it not be possible to source, like federal government or provincial government, summer student funding and hire a university student for the majority of the pickleball season?
Okay, thank you.
Success, Madam Chair, with respect to those kinds of grant applications has been spotty, quite frankly. I guess the other caution that I would give committee is that whoever these people are, they have to be trained in order to deal with the situation should it arise. And that's not an insignificant investment.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, and then Councillor Kent, I do see your hand up. Councillor Nishikawa hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you. I think I mostly want to express that I could not approve this. I also feel pretty strongly that $3 is everything I seem to attend. If it's a very, very discounted yoga class, those types of things, it's usually around $5 or $6. And so I'm finding this is, I just find this very unreasonable. I also feel the same as Councillor Roberts, that we now have a manager, of a rec manager that is supposed to be coming up, and he's doing that of other ways to use the community or excuse me, the arenas. And it's interesting because as well as my understanding from attending some events in the Port Carling arena, but the Ball Arena, we used to have antique shows, we used to have other concerts being put on, we would have other events that would take place that actually paid higher rental rates, I would also say. So I'm more interested in exploring some of those things if in fact we're trying to find a way to pay for this. I could not support another staff member just to deal with pickleball.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kent?
I'm muted. I'm not muted. Thank you. Could I just request, while we have the discussion on the next section, that Mr. Moore or whoever is responsible for this piece of work come back and just tell us what the assumptions were, if we how many sessions, so that we could figure out what the break even is. It's a quick analysis. It's how many sessions did he assume? If we assumed $5 per session, how close do we get to closing the gap? And I think we figure out what that number is, and then we go back to the pickleball people and say, here's the basis on which the township would agree to it. And, I mean, it turns out that it's $15, it's a non-starter, but if it's $6, it might be a starter.
So I just want to ask, I guess, through our director, I note in the report the discussion about user fees, and that there is mention about pickleball being a candidate for a special agreement to ensure clarity surrounding roles, responsibility, scheduling fees, et cetera, in the future. Is that something that is on the work plan for this year, is for our recreation manager to work with the pickleball group to perhaps have a further understanding of how they're using our facilities, the costs, et cetera?
It's an ongoing process, Madam Chair, and certainly it's on our work plan, as is all of our other facilities, and what should be our the appropriate fees for use. And that would come back to you as part of the next update of the fees and charges bylaw, which typically occurs in September. I'm looking to Mr. Donaldson, September or thereabouts, in preparation for the well, it would be for the 2025 budget to come forward.
Okay. So I think what I'm reading in the report is that it is identified as an opportunity, and staff are well aware of trying to have a further clarity as to the fees for different services being provided, or user fees through the facility policy, right? Sorry, facility user fee policy as noted in the report. Okay. I hope that helps without getting into the weeds today, Councillor Kent, just assurance that staff is planning to actually embark on that as noted in the report. Exactly what you're talking about.
Except for you're asking for an approval or a not approval today, and I'm suggesting that even if you want to put a placeholder in the budget, we can't put a placeholder in the budget with a 20,000. I mean, a lot of us are not going to accept a $20,000 investment in pickleball. And that's what it is, with assuming they meet the number of user sessions that they've planned. If they want us to approve it, maybe we just could know that if they, temporarily, if we want to do it for the summer season, we've assumed a user fee of X that can be evaluated and edited when you finish your full plan. So I don't know how, otherwise I think you got to pull it from the budget.
Madam Chair,
take a vote on it and see who says yes. I guess
Director Becking.
I can certainly quickly pull together. It's a very simple calculation. I just need to know the number of attendees from the current year, and we can very quickly ascertain what the cost would be.
Oh, thank you, CAO Hammond.
So to Councillor, Madam Chair, so to Councillor Kent's point, I think that's the decision. You're going to subsidize a staff person to the tune of $20,000 or not. If not, then potentially the staff go back to the group and say, if you're prepared to pay more fees, then we can go back to council with a proposal that this position is going to be funded through user fees.
That's good.
Right. Thank you. I think that's what I was trying to get to, but you did that much more succinctly. Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. So as I understand it, this group, and I've had extensive discussions with them, this is a 500+ strong, volunteer organization, recreational in nature, runs in the summer months when the arena is, I heard Councilor Nishikawa, but that arena is locked up and, people aren't using it. So, it does speak to usage. I think, here we are talking about heat pumps and other things that are 30, 40, 50,000 AED. So for $20,000 to in fact enhance, and I'm not going to use it, I'm just going to call it recreation. I'm not going to talk about the sport. I think for 20 grand, we also get other benefits. And I heard that in the GIS discussion, where there's multiple opportunities for this. So, in this regard, I certainly will support this. I think we've got bigger fish to fry, and this should be an easy one. Whether it's $3 or $5 when the thing is shuttered, what are we talking about? So I would wish we could just kind of vote and move on with it, but that's your call.
Okay, I don't actually have a motion or a resolution, so we would need to have anybody interested in putting forward a motion to support the request of additional resources up to the tune of $20,000 to staff for pickleball. So at this point, I would need to have two people so I see Councillor Zavitz would be interested in moving that. Is there somebody who's interested in seconding that? I'm not seeing that. So that means that the pickleball is now off the table. But what I will say, and I think our CAO has really articulated that well. So I'll try to remind everybody, that doesn't mean we're not supporting pickleball, to Councillor Kent's point. If they want to come back now and say, listen, we are still very much interested in that extra day, and come back through our recreation manager at a future council committee or council meeting with a refined request, then that is something that they would still very much be able to do. So it's not that that will just be sitting empty. The decision today is, do we want to actually have to the tune of $20,000 more staff time? So that did not go forward, that motion. Now I see Councillor Zavitz and Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Through you, I guess my question would be, I read in the staff report at length that there seemed to be a fairly elongated negotiation and or call it discussion, I suppose. Could staff speak to that in terms of it seemed that they came in this report with a recommendation. And I'm wondering, was this a 2-minute phone call, or was this days and days of discussion back and forth on the implications either way of because it seems to be presented to us as what they'll expect or what they'll accept. They won't pay any more than $3, etc. I guess, did we spend a lot of time on this negotiation is my question.
Thank you. And I will turn this over to Director Becking, but just for clarity, there is no staff recommendation. This was a report just summarizing the history and the conversations thus far. But I do hear your question. So Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were discussions and a meeting and follow-up discussions via phone or text. But I wouldn't call them prolonged or protracted negotiations. They were, covered off over a span of a couple of days.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I'm actually a little worried that that's gone the opposite of the way I intended. I actually would support pickleball as long as the user fees were raised to an extent where we minimized the cost to us. So I don't know, and I think a lot of people would be happy to do that. 20,000, maybe the number is 10,000 or 5,000. Okay, but the user fees are clearly too low. We don't know what the right number for user fees is, but I think to take it off the table completely means you don't have a placeholder for it between now and the summer when the ice rink is used for that service. So I think we put this on hold for 15-20 minutes. Let's get some answers and make a decision after we deal with the next one. Susan, that would be my
I think that where we landed was going to get what you are requesting, but in a different process. But I do want to make sure that I'll ask our CAO just to summarize once again how he could see a path forward that it gets to the answers without us doing on the fly a quick analysis, right? This involves a little bit more of a think and a discussion, I think. So,
but also I think the pickleball chairman and the pickleball people would be, if the choice is no or higher user fees, we tell them what our choice, we will give it to you on this basis. We won't give it to you on this basis. And then they can decide if that's not something they want.
Okay, CAO Hammond.
So, Madam Chair, I think that's in effect what is going to happen based on your decision. So you're indicating that you're not prepared to subsidize the request to the tune of $20,000. So presumably between this meeting and should you make a decision to refer this matter to council in December, further conversations can be had. This is still in the offing, if you will. And they can come back with if they feel that they do want to raise their fees to enable this to go forward. That's something you could consider when the matter is considered at council.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, Director Becky.
My pleasure, Madam Chair.
And at this point, I will ask Director Donaldson to take us through Report D.
So thank you, Chair. So I have a few comments to make on this report. Staff has prepared an information report based on the request of committee. To assist committee, the report contains some background information on historic capital expense and reserve activities in Chart 1. The need for future funding to renew capital infrastructure in the township is not in dispute. While the final quantum is not yet determined pending future discussions with respect to our asset management plan and our level of service study that is planned for 2024. Currently, the average annual spend is around $12 million. The completion of the asset management plan will help to lay the groundwork for a long-term financing plan for capital assets. Table 1 of the report provides committee with the information requested based on last year's levy of $13,700,600. Each $100,000 of increase is approximately, in terms of percentages, about a 0.7% increase in the levy. Committee has heard from me in the past that there is no risk in over contributing to reserves in the current year. Given the needs we've identified to date, staff's recommendation is that there continue to be an ongoing effort to increase contributions to reserves over the next several years to align with the level of spending that we need in order to keep our assets in a good state of repair and maintain a reasonable level of reserve and reserve funds on hand to address unforeseen and emergency situations. And with that, I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Okay, so committee, just to remind us, we have in our current operating budget, agreed to an increase this year of $441,000 to increase our reserves. Last month when we were meeting, there was a variety of interest in the acknowledgement of the situation, I would say, that we're in, that it might be fiscally prudent of us to actually add to that number. And so the conversation today, and I think table number 1 is going to be, is a very helpful understanding for us to say, you know, above and beyond that $441,000, we have an opportunity today to discuss adding to that contribution to reserve. And the information is ahead of us. And so at this point, what I would like to do is open up the conversation for any kind of questions, comments from committee, how we're feeling about this next step. Oh, and before I do that, I will ask CAO Hammond to comment.
Just, Madam Chair, thank you so much. Just as a point of clarity in the chair's comments, that 441,000 is an increase over last year's contributions, just so we're crystal clear on that. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, an increase over last year already. So, Councillor Bosemworth.
Thank you, Chair. And I have a question and then some comments / ideas.
Okay.
So the first question, or my question, is, assuming that we had some rules about minimum reserve levels, and we were at those minimum reserve levels, would our contribution should be essentially equal to what we're going to spend, or our net expenditures? And I think we need to, we talk about gross capital expenditures, but we have a lot of grants, and I would like to focus on net capital expenditures, which are around 8 million instead of 12, or somewhere in that range. So, all other things being equal, your contribution should more or less equal over time your expenditures. So that's questions. Is that the question? Is that fair to say?
Director Donaldson?
Yes, that would be correct. So we're currently at $12 million gross, and we get $2 to $2.5 million currently from regular grants we get from government. That doesn't include anything we may apply for and may receive on an ad hoc basis based on eligibility and availability. So yeah, we would be looking at having to fund the remainder of that, which would be $9 to $10 million a year based on our current forecast on an annual basis, if we got our reserves to a level that we feel that is the right number to kind of have them sit at on a perpetual basis.
Okay. Thank you.
Go on. So focusing on what I call sort of expenditures less grants, those numbers in 2024, and I'm ignoring obligatories because I have another question about that. So I only talking about the 2 discretionaries because that's the only ones we can influence. So we're going to contribute 4, but in 2024, but our expenditures less grants is 6.8. So we've got a shortfall of 2.3. In 2025, the numbers are 7.2, our net expenditures, with a proposal contribution of 5 million Again, we're short another 1.2, so now we're up to 3.5 shortage in the next 2 years. And I'll go to 2026, so your numbers went all the way to 2028. That's 8.7 is the net expenditures. And your proposal or the forecast is 5.7, so we're shortage like 3 million or something. Anyway, the point is that our gap just keeps growing with the current plan of contribution of 4, 5, and 5.8. It is clear in my mind that that's not acceptable. I also think that a reasonable reserve balance should be, we don't have rules, but my gut feel sounds nice to have at least 1 year's of expenditures sitting in reserve. And that would be net expenditure, not gross, because we do, every time we spend some money on roads, we get some grants to help us, and it's not insignificant. So that would mean we should have reserves in the area of 7 to 9 million, ultimately. That's 1 year of expenditures, between 2024 and 2027. So I was playing with the numbers. I'd say, what if we added 500,000 instead of 4 million, it was 4.5 this year, and then increase that addition by 500K every year for the next 4 or 5 years. So instead of being, we increase it by 500 this year, 1 million next year, 1.5 million the third year, and 2 million. And that gets us, if we go up to 228, my math says we're still short 2.2 million overall. But we do get the reserve balance up to around 9 million, which is roughly the net expenditures. So, I would say we need to add, whether it's 1 million this or 500,000 or 1 million this year. I don't think it's anything less than a half, and 500,000 isn't get you anywhere near where you need to be. And I throw out $1 million, and that means we're going to have a 14% tax increase. It's big, but it also might mean we won't have that kind of expenditure next year. You might go half, but we're in for some significant tax increases for the next 5 years to get us to reserve that covers 1 year of expenditure. And next year, we're going to come up with some rules about how we set expenditure or how we set reserve balances. But in absence of a rule, 1 year of reserve balance kind of feels good to me. And we're going to be down to 2 million. If we're not careful, we will be down to 2 million of those discretionary reserves in 3 or 4 years. And we should be close to 10. So I think we should be adding, let's throw out $1 million. It's a big, big number, but we are way behind.
Okay, thank you. And just before I go to anybody else, I just want to confirm with Director Donaldson, the analysis that was just shared, is that something that resonates with you or you would concur with?
I'm sure this is still on. I absolutely concur with what the councillor is stating, and my role as treasurer in bringing forward a draft budget is one to bring clarity and honesty to council, but also be cognizant of the realities of the situations. And so, it was not my intent or the intent of the senior leadership group to say that the 441,000 was in any way adequate or all that was needed, but it was really about, we need to start moving this ship in that direction. And I have no, as I've said earlier, there is no risk of over contributing to reserves. This money is absolutely needed. In terms of managing that shortfall on an annual basis, that can be done in a couple of ways in terms of contributions. We also can look at the work side and what projects we're doing, but that inevitably carries risk with it because then it adds to the backlog. So that's not the direction we've kind of gone. We've said this is the work that needs to be done and when it should be done. And I think that's all I can probably say at this point on that.
Thank you. I see Councillor Kent, Councillor Zavitz, and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Up front, I would say that I am completely in agreement with the direction that Councillor Bossenworth is going. and I spent some time talking to Director Donaldson yesterday, and I just want to, I think that I'm going to respect the fact that the staff want to come back in another 6 months or so with the proper metrics. We asked for them last year. I understand why they didn't do that, but whether it be 1 times CapEx or, annual reserve contributions versus annual CapEx, we have to come up with the metrics so we don't have a random discussion every year. It's a bit more systematic. Although you have the ability to flex on that, we need to come up with that. That being said, I am in support of a $1 million contribution, and I'll tell you why. Once I got to the bottom of the numbers, if we take our existing 7.2% increase, which is what a taxpayer who has no increase in their assessment value would see, but you combine us as part of the larger district and education costs, the tax increase that I would see if I had no increase in my assessment value would be a 3.8% increase based upon everything that's in the budget today. If we added an extra $1 million to that, that increases my little piece. My 7.2% goes to 14.4 per the analysis that Director Donaldson does, but I'm only 20% of the tax bill. The district's increase is 4.3%. They're 50% of the tax bill. And the education piece is 0 right now. It's a 30%, but it's a 0% increase. So if you factor in $1 million and what is our little share at 14.4%, the total increase that a taxpayer with no assessment value, no increase in assessment value sees is a 5.4% increase in their taxes. For once, I would say that there's an advantage to being the smaller part of a much bigger tax bill, in that our increases are in fact masked to some degree. Anyway, given what I know is coming down the road as it relates to hospitals, my view is we take as large an increase as we can possibly take now and start chipping away on this, because it's going to get worse over the next couple of years when that gets embedded into our numbers. So I'm in support of $1 million, which would be, I believe, Director Donaldson confirmed for this. If we added that above and beyond the 440 that's in there, we'd be at a 5.4% blended increase for the average taxpayer who has no increase in assessment value. So with the agreement that we come back next year with proper metrics, please.
Okay, thank you. Director Donaldson, can you just confirm the numbers that were just shared, please?
Make sure it's on. Thank you, Chair. So now I'm doing it. Councillor Kent and I did have a conversation yesterday, and that is the order of magnitude of the estimated increase that we calculate on a weighted average, considering that our share of the total tax bill currently is a fifth of the total bill that's paid by residents.
So the number then would be 5.4, as noted.
That would be my estimate. Yeah, I'll go back and just confirm everything.
Yes.
But yes, that's the estimate we come up with.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Good, thank you, and certainly through you. I'm in favor and in lockstep with the two previous councillors in their comments. Philosophically, we must, even though some of the councils in the past haven't had that courage piece, if you will, to otherwise we wouldn't be in this situation now. I might say that I favor a $500,000 level instead of the $1 million, and I'll tell you why. I think when you blend the 441 that is in addition to last year in terms of reserves, we get to a philosophical $1 million number, if you will, as an increase over 2023. And I do believe, as Councillor Rob has said, I think that we need to make a commitment to year 1 to do 500,000, year 2 to do $1 million, year 3 to do 1.5 million, and work away at this thing. Because if we don't, we won't. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I guess it's district has not completed their budget. We're not anywhere near completing the budget, so I don't want to put this discussion based on what district's going to do, because I really want to focus on our own township. And I have to state again, first of all, I don't like the use of 100,000. Sorry. I don't know that you could ever buy a house in Muskoka Lakes for 100,000. And the reality is not knowing the impact of MPAC. So again, we watched, I will say in my very, very poor community of Torrance, and this is a known, well-known fact, that those properties that were worth 200,000 that allowed our residents to stay in their homes because their wages aren't supporting anything greater than that. With what happened because of COVID and people coming up and purchasing things mostly on spec and more than tripling the price of that home, that affordable home, please take into account that those people that have those homes currently that are really struggling to maintain them, that our increases are going to affect them. And I will always bring that forward, but I don't have that number of that impact number because it's coming. And I don't know how that's going to work. Like I have no clue. It hasn't really been, there's been a lot of, well, we'll find out kind of thing. And that's in fact a conversation with impact. We just don't know. Well, that's a very concern for me. And again, I will always be that person to speak out for those that don't have, because I happen to, well, all of our communities have residents that don't have. And to just sort of say, well, let's just do it here. And cause we're all very comfortable around this table. I'm just saying that is not the reality of the residents in Muskoka Lakes.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, I just, before I move to what I really wanted to say, I want to just follow up on Councillor Nishikawa. If Impact decides that if we're a fluke, every household in the township has appreciated to the same amount, then it shouldn't create undue burden on anybody, because the nut stays the same. It's just how we split it up. And so I'm not exactly sure how Impact's going to impact the valuation, the tax obligation of anyone other than relative to everybody else. So I don't, if waterfront goes up twice as fast as in town, then I think it's a win to the in-town folks. So if I understand how Impact works, I just wanted to go back and do a couple of things. First of all, I'll tell you what, the shock of the century when you look at Director Donaldson's report, chart 1, and I printed it in black and white and then took the time to colorize it with markers. And I don't know what happened in 2021. We absolutely hit a wall. We hit a wall on, I would guess, the number of pieces of our infrastructure that started to fail and required attention. We hit the wall in terms of the cost per job that we had to invest in order to get work done with inflation in this core area of construction. We're not getting as much done. The dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. And frankly, I see we also didn't do a very prudent job of keeping or matching contributions to the expense we were running. We need to fix this. We need to fix it right now. I've been struggling literally for 5 years to understand what a benchmark might look like. And quite frankly, I've asked everybody I can think of and gone through how many countless budgets for other municipalities, and they're all struggling with the same thing. So to the extent we can come up with a benchmark next year, great. In the meantime, what Councillor Bosenworth has proposed, basically sitting on 1 year anticipated net expense, seems like a pretty darn good place to start. And I'm all comfortable with that. I think we need to do this. We're going to have to be steadfast in our resolve. This is not going to be, no matter how we try to mask it in terms of rolling it up and hiding it in, not hiding, that's not the right word, but blending it in with the overall tax hit, is still going to be easily broken out. And people are watching right now who understand that we're proposing a substantial increase in the tax load to own property here. But I don't think we would be managing this township or setting an appropriate policy to manage this township in a prudent and responsible fashion if we weren't proposing big, juicy chunks of coin being put against reserves. One of the comments that we heard back, and I think we heard it from more than one writer, was try and smooth it out over the next 3 years. So an escalation year over year, quite frankly, might just aggravate those who are trying to budget and trying to predict. If we can find a way to smooth it out, I'm not certain if we add $1 million to the current proposed number, which was 441 over last year, we're close to $1.5 million. And if we do $1.5 million next year and $1.5 million the third year, are we getting close to where we want to be? But smoothing the ride so there's no jumps and fits and starts, because I think that's going to be one challenge every year, coming back and looking for more deeper pockets. If we can find a way to smooth it out, I'm all for it. You know, $1 million is bold, but it's absolutely not too much. Frankly, it's maybe not enough, but it's a pretty decent place to start. And if we are disciplined enough to do it through the next couple of years to come up with like contributions, I think we're doing absolutely the right thing to reverse an infrastructure deficit that not only this township, but I think it's throughout the province is grappling with. And it's nice to think that maybe we're taking the lead on fixing our problem.
Sorry, thank you. And Director Donaldson, just before I'd like to turn the floor over to CAO Hammond.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just further to the mayor's comments, I think you are at a unique point in time. You've seen direct examples of crumbling infrastructure. Port Carling Wall is one of them, and the costs related to that were not anticipated. The state of our infrastructure is such that you can likely expect to see more of that if we don't act. I think, you know, the measures that you're thinking about, in my mind, are you're demonstrating leadership. With respect to the mayor's comments about this side of the equation, I think you need to be demonstrating leadership, but you will also next year have an equally difficult conversation with respect to service levels. So that's the expense side, right? That's going to take leadership as well. So that is the other opportunity to smooth this out as well.
Okay, Director Donaldson, did you want to add any comments on that?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
If I could ask you just to do a quick summary as to the impact on MPAC. I want to confirm what the mayor was saying, that when those numbers do come out, it doesn't necessarily mean an immediate leap in his analysis that if in fact the waterside properties go up, somebody else is going down. It's not like, it's not like ours, right? I'm asking Director Donaldson, please.
Yeah, just briefly, because it is a very complicated process, but there is a great video, very short video on the website that talks about the impact of how changes in assessment value affect the tax rate for various individuals. The Minister of Finance in his fall economic statement indicated that I think in the 2024 budget, we'll see some new revelations in terms of what their plans are for assessment value and for property tax coming up. So that will be interesting. But I guess I would just share with committee to ensure that we understand that the tax levy that we're talking about. So right now the budget is at $14,850,900, I think it is. That tax levy is what is needed to operate the township. If we had an astronomical increase in assessment value, committee and council also has the option to lower the tax rate, which counterbalances the two, which then is shared amongst all the residents as well. So it is a two-pronged calculation, and it is affected both by assessment value and rate as determined by committee.
Okay, thank you. I always find that to be a helpful reminder as we go through these conversations. Councillor Zavitz, Councillor Kent, Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you, through you. So as this is for information only in this excellent report, we obviously are going to be tasked with voting on it at some point in time today. My concern is how you're going to ask the question. to be quite honest, because I am not comfortable at 1 million plus the 441. I am very comfortable, as what I said earlier, at the million, if you will, with the 441 increase. So, and I think graduated into next year, $1 million, year after that, 1.5 million. That's where I'm comfortable. And I'm just very cautious or concerned as to how you're going to ask this question. Are we going to each end up selecting a number from 100 to 1 million? I'm very nervous about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's part of the way I tried to frame this up front. We will be trying to give very clear direction to staff as to an exact number. And as I hear from more people, we will get to that point before I read an actual motion, a general understanding of consensus over what the group is comfortable with. So I've heard from you that you'd be satisfied with a total of 1 million, and I've heard from a couple of others that they'd be satisfied with, I guess, 1,441,000 at this point. So I haven't heard from everybody. I just want to hear from the rest of the group, and then we will get to that point. Councillor Kent.
I have a comment and a question. Back to Mayor Kelly's comment about smoothing the ride. That reinforces my thought that rather than having a sticker shock one year and then sticker shock the next year and then more sticker shock, let's get it up. Let's get to the sticker shock sooner, because we do have some other sticker shock items coming down the road. So it would be better to take the opportunity now before those items get in to get a kickstart on this. And that's why I'm supporting $1 million. I don't know when, and I know it's not our issue, the district hospital tax, if you want to look at it that way, comes in. When do we expect that to start happening for one of our district counselors? And then that's my second question. Thank you. Oh,
Okay,
and I have one other comment. There is another way to look at this, and I don't know if it's possible within a township and a municipality, but when you go to a country club and they have a flood and they realize they have to do $10 million of irrigation work to make the place livable, they basically set it up as a separate item on the tax bill. And it would be like infrastructure plan build out or something, whatever we wanted to call it. Is there any way to have any flexibility in how we set up this increased funding over once we determine that in total we're going to have to increase our taxes, the tax base, by about $10 million or whatever the number is in total, to set it up as a one-liner within our bill? So two comments I had there. Sorry, first one was hospitals. Second one was for Director Donaldson, probably.
Okay, thank you. Our CAO just left, so I actually may turn to the mayor to understand with the hospital.
Through you, thank you, and through you, and unless Director Johnson knows better, I believe it's going to be starting with the 24 tax bill. I think we're paying for it effectively in March or whatever the first installment's due.
Oh, I thought it was a couple of years. Sorry, thank you.
So the sticker shock will happen. Okay, soon, it sounds like. And then the second question, Director Donaldson.
Thank you, Chair. And so on the second question as to whether or not that can be broken out on the tax bill, I'd have to go back and discuss with my staff. Our current financial system is a little antiquated, and I'm not sure how flexible it is. So we'd have to take that under advisement. But absolutely, in the absence of being able to show it on the bill, we could always make that communication very clear through other means to make sure people understand how their taxes are being arrived at.
And then it might be a multi-year plan.
So it could be in the line of a more business term, like a capital call plan. Like if we're in a situation, I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah,
and
you acknowledge it up front that it's multi-years.
Correct.
Yeah, that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bozemer.
Thank you. And if you can indulge me, I've got a couple of points. Is that right? Councillor Nishikawa is showing both her wisdom and her understanding of things. And I believe her point was that when we get the new assessments out, COVID has caused urban properties, non-lakefront properties, to go up significantly. Is that your point? And if they go up faster than the lakefront properties, then not only will they be getting 14%, they will be getting 14 plus whatever increase they are above the average. And I think that was her point. We don't know what's going to happen, but if you read in the press and understand what COVID did to rural properties, they've gone up a lot, and we don't know what the answers are. So that was just a point, and I think that clarifies that that's a valid concern with a reasonable probability that there will be a shift, slightly, a lot, maybe not at all, but it seems like there will be a shift away from lakefront properties to non-lakefront properties. So I think that's just a clarification, because I'm not sure that was on. The other one is a question I have for Director Donaldson. Our obligatory reserves continue to sit at somewhere between, let me get the number here, 8.7 at the end of 24. And by 2028, they're down to 6.6. So we've taken 2 million out of it. My question to you is, how do we get at that money? And CAO Hammond, in our last meeting when we were talking about community planning, said, you know, in my lifetime, I've never seen us get penalized for taking too long to get a bylaw, a comprehensive zoning bylaw in place after official plan is. And maybe there's the same laxness about how we take money out of that account and make some use of it, because that's a huge amount of money and it's just sitting there and we can't touch it. And we have very little plans to spend money in there. I mean, this is insane. It's a huge amount of money. It would fix half our problem in a nanosecond.
Director Donaldson.
So thank you. And I do get questions about this often. The use of the funds in the development charge, parkland and building fund are governed by legislation. So the purposes for which they can be used are very clearly outlined in those particular acts. We do use some of the money, for example, parkland. We do use a significant amount of that money that we collect through parkland in lieu for severances that money that we receive to support our green spaces and our facilities. Development charges is a little bit different. We're currently doing our background study to set out our 10-year plan in terms of how we will use the money that we collect for development charges to support capital projects that are growth related within the district or within the township, excuse me. And that's clearly defined as well in terms of what is growth, what constitutes growth, enhancements to service levels, and changes in terms of it's easy in an urban area. You build a new subdivision, it's clear you got to build a new road, you got to build new sewers, that's clearly growth. In our area, it's a little bit different, and we're working through determining what are those eligible expenditures for growth to use that money through the development charge bylaw that committee and council will see early next year with our consultant. And building is very clear. It's restricted to uses around supporting property inspections, and unfortunately can't be used for things like roads and community centers and those types of things that we definitely have a need for, but it's not money that's generated through the tax levy. So it's got to be used purposefully for the intent it was collected through building permits.
Councilor Boseworth.
There was part of my question that wasn't answered, and that part was, what are the implications if you don't follow the rules precisely?
Through you, Chair, I'm a member of the Chartered Professional Accountants Association of Ontario. It has a code of ethics that I need to adhere to.
Councilor Boseworth.
May I redirect the question then to the CAO?
It's called leadership.
Well, as a registered professional planner, in fact, I review. But that said, I do hear what you're saying, Councillor Boseworth, and I am cognizant of the fact that we are in the midst of updating our development charges study. I think that's it's a question that we should put to our consultant, that we do have a bit of a unique circumstance. I suspect I know what the answer will be, but I think we should explore that. And if the answer does come back, well, you can't do that, then I think we should be advocating through our MPP that, you know, if the province is interested in seeing development and growth, et cetera, then perhaps they should be changing the rules as it relates to situations like ours, where we have you know, an exorbitant, or not exorbitant, but the second home population outnumbers the permanent population. And we're seeing significant growth there, have been. I mean, Mr. Pink can probably point to successive years where we've led the province or been amongst the leaders in the province of seasonal growth and or issuance of building permits. Certainly the building reserve speaks to that. So yeah, I think it's something that we should explore. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Edwards, you have your hand up?
Yes, I've heard the number 500,000, and I've heard the number $1 million. If that's going into reserve, say the 1 million, we're getting interest on that, so it's helping in the long run by doing it now rather than later, is what we're saying. I've been saying for years, if you knew what your taxes were going up every year, you could budget, whether it was 5%, 10%, whatever it was, rather than up and down like we're doing now. I'd say I would support everyone else saying it should be 1 million this year, and that we'll be getting interest on that. Some municipalities, I believe, when they're doing something, they will borrow from their reserves and pay interest on it as if they were doing a debenture, and it builds it up. And I think this is what we should be doing. I've been advocating this for years, and that it's a hard bullet to bite, but I would still go for the 1 million. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and one more thing. If impact assessment goes up, we can adjust our tax rate, our mill rate and that. So if we need $15 million, it doesn't matter. You work it out from that, do you not? So it's not really going to be that much difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I come to you, Councillor Bosworth, Councillor Zavitz has his hand up. Thank you, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Through you, I guess a question to Mark, and it's probably simple math. So do I, if I'm in favor of the 500,000, do I just simply take your 3.6 on your chart and add it to 7.2, or do I add it to 8 point the number?
Okay, thank you. And Director Donaldson, can you help us out with numbers, please?
Yeah, thank you. So we've already factored in the growth component to the 8.4% levy, the total taxes collected. The rate is 7.2, so we would just add the 3.6 to both of those numbers, and we would end up with a levy increase and a tax rate increase that would both be 3.6 higher than what's in the current draft.
Okay, so thank you. And so if I might, secondary, so at $1 million, a 7.2% increase, I just can't put my hand up yes to a 15% increase in front of our public. I just can't do it. So you know, I won't be in favor of $1 million. I just can't see us doing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosworth.
Yeah, just to clarify, when I am proposing $1 million increase, that's $1 million increase above the 4 million. I presume the 4 million is already done. So I'm not counting this 441. It's 4 million becomes 5 million. And that's getting us close to the 6.8 million that we're going to spend. We're still underfunding what we're spending by, you know, 1.3 million.
So, correct. I just want to make sure that, again, I'm coming back to the numbers now, because I think that's where we're starting to kind of get ourselves to. If we have a net levy of 8.4%, with all the changes thus far, correct? And if we were at the $1 million, that would add another 7.2. So we're now looking at 15.6% increase on the net levy. And then is it 7.2? Sorry, I'm trying to go through your report. It's at 7.2 is the tax rate. So then it would be 14.4. for the tax rate. And then to further, the third number that has been thrown out today would be, that would be the 5.4% blended tax rate. Kind of under it, with some of it being guessed at this point.
Yes, yeah, that's right, Chair. So if we increase the total levy to 15,850,900, that would, and I have got some slightly updated assessment numbers, so my decimal might be a little different than yours, but the tax rate increase would be 14.3. And the total approved levy over 2023 would be 15.7.
I think that was when I was saying with the blended tax rate. So I think sorry. Okay. Let me hold on. You don't have your mic on. So just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to let you ask the question because you haven't spoken much today. So Councillor Burry, can you put your mic on and ask the question to staff?
So I'm okay with that. What does that make the percentage of the total tax bill? Because we're 20% of the total tax bill.
We had that.
And I think Sally had that number.
So
including the hospital.
yeah, so through your chair, so including the current proposed draft tax supported budget that the district has put through, and assuming no increase on the education portion, we're at 5.4% on the entire bill that a person would see year over year with no changes in assessment value.
So that seems like a pretty reasonable number for us to be able to sell, to try and get ourselves back on track and to have the courage to do it.
Okay. And I just want clarification for all of us sitting around here that that number also includes the hospital, which we were hearing is at the district. I recognize it's not a done budget. I'm just, I think we're working with the best information we currently have to try and give us a sense. I don't know, Director Donaldson, I think you're looking something up. So I can, no, you're not. Okay. Okay. Councillor Kent, then Councillor Boseworth.
I would just say the reason why I'm in support of a 5.4% increase overall blended and a 14.3, as Mr. Donaldson corrected me on, not 14.4, is because if we're 20% of the township, we should be 25%. We've been underfunding the crown jewel of the township for years and years. The crown jewel of the district for years and years. So we have to start increasing our share of the total pool, even though nobody wants it to be that way. We have to get there, and we've been underfunding it, and as a result, it looks worse than it is. But we shouldn't be 20. We should probably be 22% or 23% of the total, because we're not spending enough money to actually show our share in a proper fashion. So I'm in support of the $1 million above the 440. I wasn't sure what there was another counselor who said he was in support of 500, and I wasn't sure, or $1 million. I wasn't sure if that was $1 million above or beyond.
I think it was $1 million total. So the difference right now is that I've heard thus far has been there is interest in a $1 million total increase, and there's also interest in $1,441,000 increase. So those are the two numbers I have currently written down based upon what I've heard, but there are still some hands up. And Councillor Bowen-Smith, before I go to you, I'd like to go to Mayor Kelly. He hasn't had as many chances to speak, if that's okay, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you. And through you, I just wanted to pick up on something that Councillor Kent said, which is spot on. I think we've had the habit in prior years of playing second fiddle to the budget increases that are coming from district. And I think my only comment is I believe there's a different attitude among district councillors that are there from Township of Muskoka Lakes, one of accountability, one of prudent, responsible management. And hopefully it'll be a lot easier in the future to make sure we step up when we have to fund, as you call it, the crown jewel of the district. So I think that's great input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Boseworth. I am going to go to Councillor Roberts. He hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, just want to confirm that the 5.4 blended rate includes the current anticipated payment for the hospital share?
So I think what I have heard, and I am looking to you, Mayor Kelly, if you could just repeat what you said.
Thank you. A little slightly different question, but through you, I believe it includes the hospital share, but I'm 99% certain the hospital share is going to hit the tax bills this coming spring. And I don't know, I haven't checked Director Donaldson's math, but I'm pretty sure that it includes the piece for local share that will be levied by the district.
So through your chair, just to
yes.
clarify, so I do have a copy of the district's tax supported budget here. Just happened to carrying it with me. I don't know why. So they've proposed a 4.35% rate increase, which translates into a 5.96% combined total levy, including 0.5% related to the additional levy related for the hospital and healthcare facilities. So it is included.
So the answer to the question, Councillor Roberts, is yes, it is included. Okay, so committee, sorry, Councillor Boseworth.
Yeah, just a comment. We, as I said in our previous meeting, we have been chasing inflation and we ignored it last year. In 20, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but in 20 and 21 and into 22, we were pushing inflations that were 6, 7, 8%. Cumulatively, you add those up, we're into 25%. And we're talking about a 15% increase that's catching up for essentially 4 years of inflation. We've caught up some of it. I mean, like I think our rate increase last time was only about 3.8%. It was a very small number, way below inflation. And you know, a significant portion of this $50 million growth in our capital plan from 2 years ago, from 70 to 120, a significant portion of that has to be inflation just based on the numbers. So, you know, it's hard and it's a big number, but it's either that or we're going to have bad infrastructure and then people are really going to be upset.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and to follow on Councillor Boseworth, I think we absolutely are chasing an extraordinary period of inflation, but I think we're chasing it with an increasingly dated or out of date and fragile infrastructure that's failing more and more expensively than before. We're carrying 60-year-old arenas. We're carrying some 100-year-old community centers. These things don't last forever. They probably all hit the useful service life. They're all starting to fail. And we're being called upon to patch and repair and make do during a time when, as you've pointed out correctly, inflation is killing us on the cost of what we're doing to them.
Okay, so committee. I'm not seeing any other hands. It's important that we all have a chance to speak and have our voice heard. Before I get to a number, I just would like to also add a comment without the comment about the actual number. The importance of us taking a leadership role. And there's been many great comments made today about acknowledging the position we are in for a variety of reasons. Historical underfunding was mentioned, changing conditions that we're facing today. And that actually is incumbent upon us as a group to say, what are the things that we can do to ensure that our next councils look back and realize that not only are we today taking care of what we need to, but we've been looking forward to put them into the best possible positions for future decision making as well. And this has been a really important, I would say, and very helpful discussion thus far, is how I feel. This is leadership, and I think that it comes with us very effectively communicating what that's going to look like, and whatever we end up on today, you know, we'll be looking to our team, our communications team, to help all of us understand what we are facing and how this group has done a very thoughtful and engaged discussion led by the great analysis and feedback of our staff. So that's my comment. Now before us, I do think I need to do a straw poll because I haven't seen any other hands up at this point, and I do appreciate having a chance to speak last. We have two numbers in front of us, as I've heard it. We can increase our reserves to a total of $1 million, which in this table would be 500 plus, shoot, 49,000, thank you, whatever the number is to get us to a pure $1 million. And then there is $1 million that would take us to $1,441,000 with a blended tax rate of 5.4. I've heard a little bit more support for the latter one. So what I would like to do is start with that one just to see if I could just see a show of hands for a straw poll. This is not a commitment, just a straw poll. Those who would be interested in seeing $1,441,000 tax increase. Okay, clarification.
Just a clarification.
Mhm.
You've talked about deltas. It's easier to identify to a number. The current budget has 4 million. We are talking about increasing that to 5 million.
Yes.
Which is 1,440,000 something greater than we contributed last year.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm
Yes.
looking for that.
Yes, thank you.
4, 4 becomes 5.
Yeah, 4 million becomes 5. Thank you for summarizing that. So just a quick straw poll for those interested in increasing our recommended contribution from 4 million to $5 million for this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I would put my hand up there, 8. So that would be the number, I guess, right? So now do I just write that in there and then I will read this resolution? Okay. Oh. This is 1 million. That's right.
Can we take a recess for 5 minutes?
Yes,
please?
if we could just take a quick 5-minute recess, just to make sure I get this exact resolution correct and I understand procedurally how to move forward, that would be great. So we'll be back at, I'm going to say actually 10 to 12. Thank you. Currently 11:50. Nice to see you.
Those were keto friendly, sure, right? Yes. The sugar bullets.
Okay, so committee, we are back. Councillor Nishikawa has made us aware that she does need to leave, so you'll note that she's not here, but the rest of us are sitting here, and we just have a few resolutions that we need to read. I will read the first resolution, and that was just the discussion we just had on the reserves. Moved by Councillor Bosemore, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that committee approves an increase in reserve contribution from the tax levy above the minimum recommended contribution of $4 million by 1 million to a total of $5 million. And that the revised contribution be included in the draft 2024 operating and capital budget. Any questions? Okay, any comments? All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, the next motion, I am pulling this back from the table, the main motion. There was a slight clerical error. So I'm going to reread it. It's a small, it was a detail that was a number. But I will reread this, and then there's another resolution I'm reading, correct? Okay. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the 2024 report on excluded expenses, Ontario Regulation 284-09 regarding expenses excluded from the 2024 draft budget and forecast as included in report FIN-2023-026 be approved. And that the Township of Muskoka Lakes 2024 draft operating and capital budget and forecast as attached to report FIN-2023-026, that was the error, be forwarded to council for final approval. So do I call the, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, now I'm going to read the new motion. Another one, the amended resolution, right? This is the amendment moved by Councillor Burry. Seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the following be added to the second paragraph after the words report FIN-2023-026 and amended as per the decisions at the November 30th, 2023 Special General Finance Committee. No, I call them. Any questions? Are there any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And all those in favor of the main motion as amended? Okay, thank you. That carries. And I'm very pleased to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we are now able to adjourn this meeting. Sorry, we have to change this again. That's okay. Moved by Councillor McIntyre.
Chair, there's someone
Yes.
hand up.
Oh, Councillor Kent. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, sorry. How did we leave, and this is probably a stupid question, how did we leave the pickleball thing? It's out and we're gonna rediscuss it in December? I just wanna make sure I'm online on that one.
Okay, CAO Hammett.
Madam Chair, so the matter's out. Whether or not it gets discussed in December is dependent on the will of the pickleball group.
Sorry, I thought we were gonna get some analysis back, though.
No, if the pickleball group does come forward to discuss the matter further with staff, that analysis could follow. But again, whether or not the matters raised at council is whether or not they wish to delegate and discuss it further.
Sorry, I thought we wanted to find out what the break even was on user fees so that we could either recommend or not recommending going forward with it.
Madam Chair, I believe that Councillor Kent, that's a matter that you brought forward. I don't think that your peers agreed with that. And so
Okay.
we are where we are with respect to the matter. Committee has indicated, you weren't willing to subsidize the request to the tune of $20,000. So for clarity, committee has said we are not willing to subsidize it. Presumably, if the group wishes to pursue the request, they can consult with staff. Staff will tell them committee was not interested in subsidizing it to that amount. They can look at increased user fees to completely absorb the cost by user fees and or subsidize it less. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Boseworth.
I thank the CAO for the clarification that we sent them the way that we weren't really to subsidize them to that amount. I don't think we want to give the impression that we don't want to have them have more pickleball. I don't think anybody was against that. I think we were just concerned about how much we had to pay and whether that was fair or not.
Okay. So not to use a bad pun right now, but the ball is in there. No, I know, but the ball is in their court is what I was going to say. And I thought that was a fun little, you did exactly. Thank you. I am going to adjourn, but the last time I did this, I forgot right before. And I said afterwards, all my gratitude to staff, particularly to Director Donaldson for walking us through probably one of the most, I would say, impressive and significant budgets that we've had sitting around my short tenure at this table. And your leadership kind of throughout the entire process has been noted and appreciated, certainly by myself. And I'm imagining everybody else by their reaction around this table. So thank you. And thank you to all senior staff for helping us. This is going to be exciting because it's shown leadership. And as I noted in my comments, I'm looking very much forward to how our communications team helps us deliver the right message, right? This is an exciting time. It's leading. And so over to you, I guess, on that one. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 11:58 a.m. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, December the 13th, 2023 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the council chambers, municipal office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That is carried. Thank you, committee. Have a wonderful day. Drive safely out there. And we will see you in a couple of weeks.